Hello, Perfect Death here, and this will be another Ragnarok Online mobile video. In this video, I'm going to talk about the Counter-Attack Halo skill, which is a Divine Avenger skill, located down here. This skill, if you use one of these origin books, you can get it up to level 5, and it will work by dealing AoE damage when you are hit. Now there's a few things this doesn't really explain, and some things that have changed over time. Fairly recently they added that this skill will be, or is in, the damage of it is increased by physical damage increase stat. It doesn't say that here. It does say that it's not affected by race, element, and size. That's both a blessing and curse kind of thing. It means that enemy race, element, and size reductions are not applied to the skill. So it does do some pretty good damage because it can bypass a lot of reductions. But there are still some things that it is affected by that can greatly reduce your damage if you don't prepare for it. So the other thing it doesn't say is that there is a delay between when each AoE pulse can happen. So right now it is 1 second, and there's going to be a new update in the game that will make it so that the pulses can occur every half second. So it potentially will double the skill's DPS. So as a skill, it could be a very strong PvP skill. And to show that off, let's go over here. So if I, now against the dummies will show this off. If I use this and then I attack the dummies, you'll see that red damage there. You can get an idea for how long it takes before it will do another pulse. So right now I'm doing about 800k, and I'm not really that well built for this. Again, this is a skill that will scale in damage based on your current HP. There is a rune that I'll talk about. Let's see, I wonder, I have one, but I don't have the third line activated for it. This rune will increase the damage and the range of Counterattack Halo, and if you get this third line, it means that it will always use your max HP. So if you take a hit and that drops you down to a quarter of your health, it will only take a quarter of your health into account for how much damage you do. So if you use this, if you don't have that third line and you want to use this, then you would want to make sure you're always very high HP. So this one is a red, blue, yellow rune. And so with that activated there, if I use this skill again, you'll see I am now at 1 million damage. So that boosted me by like a good 300k, well 200k actually. So because this is a red damage, that red damage type means it won't get like reflected back. It bypasses quite a few things. It doesn't work against everything, unfortunately. There is still some stuff that will ignore it or be immune to it. So it's not perfect, not ideal, but it is a pretty nice addition to what you want to run. But yeah, again, because it relies heavily on your defense ignore, the weapon of choice ends up being the Ivory Lance. This one isn't exactly 100% defense ignore. It's close to adding 100 to your defense ignore. So if I go over to my stats here, I have 106.5% defense ignore. The spear kind of adds almost 100 to this, so I'm close to so I'm about 200% defense ignore. And that's about the low end that you would want. If you go into PvP, you would want to have at least 200% defense ignore. 250 is definitely a nicer spot to go to. Part of that is if you are in any kind of group fight. Wait, wrong job. I was going to show off priests, because I know priests for sure, they have this Assumptio skill that's an extra 50% defense that will greatly reduce your damage if you don't have enough defense ignore. One of the other things that really greatly reduces it would be, let's see, wizards, energy coat. This reduces damage, so this one is a very strong resistance against counterattack halo as well. But yeah, there is no element to it. It's not affected by size or race, so you end up being able to focus on defense ignore. You would also focus on physical damage increase, and then also on max HP. So those three would definitely be the main stats to focus on. So the skill itself is like a main build is kind of limited, mostly because of the delay, the downtime on this skill. It has 15 seconds up, 30 seconds down. So being a bit of a hybrid is quite useful if you're going to look at running this skill. Either you have yourself built for this skill and then you have another skill as side damage. For example, you could run Spear Quicken for more attack speed and then Sacrifice. And then you could be in between your counterattack halos, you're using Sacrifice to do DPS. Or because you have high defense ignore, you could run Earth Drive. And so you go into a group, you drop your Earth Drive and your counterattack halos and do AoE DPS, because Earth Drive is affected by defense ignore. So those are kind of the two branches that you can take and try to like mix the two. My current build is a weird mix of all three. I've got Ivory Lance, I've got heal armors, I've got defense ignore, got more heal stuff, vitality stuff. So I don't quite do as much damage with all of my stuff. Like if I'm on Sacrifice, you can see I'm doing like 260, and generally in PvP, the low end of my Sacrifice damage gets to like 160k if they're high resistance, or I should say high refine, because refine gear reduces Sacrifice damage. But yeah, and that's mostly because my health sits just under 1 million. But I have a quite a strong self-heal. So, and then I can also do my Earth Drive as well, which does pretty good damage. Somewhat comparable. If the person has high resistance, then they really reduce the damage of this. Low end, I'll see like 60k damage from Earth Drive. But I mean, high end, it'll be similar to, my Sacrifice damage if I'm fighting a squishy player. So, in general, I find for me, I prefer my versatility, as I end up just running a weird hybrid of different skills. So I can't really recommend too much about gear or skills for counterattack Halo, as I haven't fully built for it myself. But it's definitely going to be a much more viable skill, simply because, before you would just sort of use it just because if you get like stuck in space, in like silent space, or you get stuck in like a stellar hunter is using their gravity trap thing, or you just can't in general get to somebody to poke them, then this skill actually does pretty good at reaching out and hitting them. So even if you're just stuck in, crowd control hell, you can still do some kind of damage to people with counterattack Halo. So it's definitely worth looking into getting the skill anyway. So, and if it's going to be ticking twice as fast, then that's going to be really nice. So we'll see how that works out. Take care.